Bob Dylan has become synonymous with the 60s Greenwich Village musical scene, and so focusing on this time rising up the ranks to become a popular musician has potential. Director James Mangold previously explored the life of Johnny Cash in Walk the Line, but by focusing on a specific time in Dylan's life for Complete Unknown, he has at least tried not to repeat himself. However, watching the film, it does not really tell us that much about Dylan and what drives him. We see he was a brilliant musician influenced by Woody Guthrie and that he cheated on his girlfriend, and that's the extent the film tells us about him, thus making this a somewhat underwhelming biopic. When Timothee Chalamet walks on screen, he does manage to depict what the younger Dylan would have been like. He has clearly worked a lot to imitate his familiar voice and play the needed instruments, and it's not hard to buy him in this role. He has become one of those young actors who does seek to bring something different to each character he plays. There's very little in common between Bob Dylan, Willy Wonka, and Paul Atreides, with Chalamet understanding that and changing his acting approach accordingly. He does a suitable job of performing the songs and giving an indication for why Dylan was able to quickly rise to the top with these tunes. However, his characterization does not provide much opportunity to delve that deeply into him. We see his admiration and idolization of Woody Guthrie and the relationships he forms with his girlfriend Sylvie and fellow musician Joan Baez, but that's the extent of the personality given to him. He's a surprisingly flat character through most of the movie, which does affect the overall pacing. The main thing learned about his relationship with Sylvie is that he would cheat on her, and that's about it. It thus makes it difficult to care about the complications that arise from their relationship troubles. The film throws in a bunch of other musicians, expecting the audience to be amazed when they show up and reveal who they are. However, with the exception of Pete Seeger, as played by Edward Norton, we don't get to know any of them. Johnny Cash's role here is particularly one note, and just there to provide a few words for Dylan. While the songs are nicely performed, the movie does not really explore why they resonated with much depth. Early on, the script makes references to John F. Kennedy, suggesting the film will get into the political themes Dylan would inject into his songs, but then it never truly touches on that. A Complete Unknown is a safe and routine profile of a famous musician without giving us much of an understanding for who he is. James Mangold hops from one musical performance to the next, but what's happening in between the songs is not interesting enough to sustain the 2-hour and 20-minute runtime. While the focus on this period in Bob Dylan's life does prevent it from going down some of the usual tired tropes of the musical biopic, there's not much under the surface anyway. People with deep knowledge of Dylan's life and career might get something out of the film, but those who only have a basic understanding of his time in the 60s will learn extremely little about him.